For decades, Southwest Airlines promised you free bags. Delta never made that promise, and yet somehow Delta convinced millions of passengers they were the premium choice, the trust option, the airline that treats you right. Then on April 8, 2026, they raised the bag fee to $200. Not because they had to, because they figured out they could. And there's a legal reason they'll never voluntarily tell you about. To understand what just happened in 2026, you need to go back to 2008. Before 2008, checking a bag on a US domestic flight was free. It was just part of flying. You bought a ticket, you brought your suitcase, nobody charged you extra. That was normal for decades. Then oil prices spiked globally. Fuel costs shot up. Airlines started bleeding money. American Airlines made a decision that no US carrier had ever made before. They started charging $15 for the first checked bag on domestic flights. Passengers were furious. Travel blogs called it a cash grab. Nobody thought it would last. It lasted, and then it grew. Within 2 years, almost every major US carrier followed Americans' move. The numbers tell the story. In 2007, US Airlines collected $464 million total from baggage fees. By 2010, that number had jumped to $3.4 billion. That is a sevenfold increase in 3 years. The fee that was supposed to be a temporary fuel recovery measure had become a permanent business strategy. But here is what most passengers never noticed. When airlines introduced bag fees, base ticket prices quietly dropped by about $7. So the advertised fare looked cheaper. The bag fee was hidden deeper in the booking process. The total cost of the trip went up, but the number on the search results page went down. Travelers were paying more and feeling like they got a deal. Behavioral economists have a name for it: drip pricing. You anchor the customer to a low number early, then introduce the real costs one step at a time at the exact moment when they are least likely to walk away. By the time you see the bag fee, you've already picked your seat, entered your name, and you were 3 clicks from done. The airlines did not stumble onto this by accident. They engineered it. By the mid-2010s, bag fees had stopped being a response to anything. They had become a core part of the airline business model. In 2022, US Airlines collected $6.8 billion in checked bag fees alone. That was up 17% from pre-pandemic levels in 2019 and double what the industry collected a decade earlier. By 2023, the figure reached approximately $7.2 billion just from bags, not counting seat fees, change fees, boarding fees, or anything else. Globally, airline ancillary revenue topped $33 billion that year. Delta, United, and American built loyalty programs directly around these fees. If you hold a co-branded credit card with Delta, your first bag flies free. That sounds like a perk. What it actually does is lock you into a credit card relationship that generates billions more for the airline through interchange fees and annual card revenue. The bag fee created the incentive. The credit card became the product. Now here is the part that rarely gets reported. There's a federal excise tax of 7.5% on domestic airfare. That tax applies to every dollar in the base ticket price, but it does not apply to baggage fees. Under US tax law, charges for baggage that are listed separately from the ticket price are exempt from that excise tax. The math is straightforward. If Delta sells a $300 round-trip ticket that includes a bag fee bundled in, they owe the government $22.50 in taxes. But if they sell a $220 ticket and charge $40 each way for the bag, their tax bill drops to $16.50. Same money out of your pocket, $6 less to the government. Scale that across the industry at $7.02, US airlines are shielding over $500 million per year from federal excise tax. One aviation industry expert put the figure more simply. Airlines save roughly $75 million in taxes for every $1 billion they collect in bag fees. That is not a bug in the system, it's a feature they have no interest in giving up. Fast forward to February 28, 2026. A military conflict involving Iran breaks out in the Middle East. Within days, the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway that carries roughly 1/5 of the world's oil supply, faces serious disruption. Oil markets respond immediately. Jet fuel, which historically sits at 25 to 30% of an airline's total operating cost, starts climbing fast. Before the conflict, jet fuel was averaging around $2.40 per gallon. By early April 2026, that number had hit $4.80 per gallon. The cost had effectively doubled in 5 weeks. Airlines also had to reroute some flights around closed airspace in parts of the Middle East, burning even more fuel on longer routes. Analysts at Deutsche Bank and S&P Global now project that, for carriers without significant fuel hedging in place, jet fuel will consume 45 to 50% of their total operating budgets this quarter. That is not a historical average. That is the crisis number. Airlines face the choice. Raise ticket prices visibly, which shows up on every comparison site and immediately hands business to competitors who haven't moved yet, or raise ancillary fees, which are tucked away in the booking flow and carry no tax burden. They chose the fees. In the first week of April 2026, 4 major U.S. airlines raised checked bag fees within days of each other. Here is the one thing history has proven without exception. No major U.S. airline that has ever introduced a bag fee has reversed it. Not when fuel prices fell, not after the pandemic, not after public backlash, not once. The $200 bag fee is not a response to a crisis. The crisis just gave them the cover to move faster. The system was already built, the loophole was already in place, and the pattern was already set back in 2008 when passengers were outraged and flew anyway. Because at the end of the day, airlines know one thing that most passengers don't want to admit. You need to get somewhere, and they've got the planes.